الحمد لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله الأول قبل الإنشاء والإحياء والآخر بعد فناء الأشياء، العليم الذي لا ينسى من ذكره ولا ينقص من شكره، ثم الصلاة والسلام على أفضل الأنبياء وأشرف المرسلين سيدنا ونبينا محمد وعلى آله الطاهرين وصحبه المنتجبين. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. يقول الله تبارك وتعالى في القرآن الكريم: أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم، بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. كل نفس ذائقة الموت وإنما توفون أجوركم يوم القيامة فمن زحزح عن النار وأدخل الجنة فقد فاز وما الحياة الدنيا إلا متاع الغرور. Every soul will taste death, and you will be given your full reward on the day of judgment. Whoever is spared from the fire and admitted into paradise, then he or she has certainly succeeded. Whereas the life on this world is no more than delusional enjoyment. One of the verses in the Holy Quran that leaves us with the paradigm for success and failure in our life. It shifts the concept of success from this world into the hereafter. That ultimately those who manage to structure their lives in this earth in a manner which they can navigate through life, but the goal is the hereafter. And ultimately they succeed over there and they are spared the punishment, then they have been successful. Last night, as we continued the discussion about barzakh and death, two major issues were discussed. Number one, as the soul departs, and at the moment of the departure, with the removal of the veil from their eyes, they, beginning of barzakh, they go through a moment in which they recognize what is in front of them. The result of their deeds in the life becomes quite clear. And then we had the question of Munkar and Nakir, the two angels that they come and ask questions. Whether it is metaphoric or whether it's literal, that's a totally different story. But technically, I don't need, in a sense, Munkar and Nakir to ask me if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is removing the veil in front of my eyes and I can see what's ahead and what a mess I have left behind. Clearly tells you where am I going. And going to the hadith that says that the grave is going to be either a heavenly abode or some kind of a ditch of fire, it becomes clear immediately. The second question that we discussed briefly, and I need to expand on it a little bit, is whether we can communicate with the souls during this barzakh that they are in, and whether particularly for those who have had people who have departed, whether they can help them. The issue of under what circumstance the souls connect, whether it's dream or anything else, when their souls elevate or not, it's academic. It's neither here nor there. But what is critical, if my father has departed, if my mother has departed, if my relatives have departed, are there ways by which I can help them during this particular period when they are in barzakh? If we look at a number of ahadith that we have, is huge, extensive literature regarding how we can support our deceased individuals. There is a hadith from Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq salawatullah salamu alayhi, on recitation of Surah Tabarak, which is the beginning of Juz 29, that you begin to recite this particular surah for the sake of deceased. Extremely helpful. Hadith from Imam Rida that says about Surah Al-Qadr. إِنَّا أَنزَلْنَاهُ فِي لَيْلَةِ الْقَادِرِ 7 times or more, if you can do it every night for their soul, the sake, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would help them out. There are ahadith regarding recitation of 2 rak'ah salat, beginning with Fatiha, and then قُلْ يَا أَيُّهَا الْكَافِرُونَ and Surah Al-Tawheed in each rak'ah. And at the end of the recitation or at the end of the prayer, you ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forward the blessings and the thawab for this prayer to the soul of those who are deceased. These are something that we can do as far as prayer. But the hadith that we have reminds us that before we get to the issue of prayer, there are much more critical issues that we have to focus and pay attention to. If they have had any salat that they haven't done, if my father has died and there are a number of years of prayer that he hasn't done, or my mother, or fasting that they haven't done, or Hajj that it was obligatory on them and they didn't go, and so on. So these take precedent over everything else. The one that the eldest within the living becomes responsible to do all of these. Cover for their prayer, cover for their fasting, cover for their Hajj. You keep saying that providing them with some kind of prayers, but if they haven't done du'as, but they haven't done their prayers, these are the ones that you need to cover before you do anything else. There are other ahadith that says sadaqah and ta'am, feeding the poor and giving sadaqah to the needy for the soul of those who are deceased. But remember, all of these are conditional that you do it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone, not you show off. You come to the mosque and you provide lavish food only to show off. That's worthless. The verse in the Holy Quran says it. When there is shirk in it, I'm not going to accept. If you do it for the sake of others, they say on the Day of Judgment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would say, you did it for the sake of ostentation and showing off. Go and get your reward from those that you provide. You did it for their sake. And this is the concept of what we call al-khalaf al-salih. There is a hadith that says longevity. People search for longevity in their life by taking vitamins and exercising and reducing weight and everything else. Longevity, because starting with the kullu nafsin dha'iqatul maut, with that paradigm, is what happens in the hereafter, barzakh and the hereafter. There are 3 ways by which every human being can have long and fruitful life. Number 1, for parents, to have al-khalaf al-salih, which means the children, that they would remember them after their departure constantly. Recite Quran for them, give sadaqah for them. If I have missed any of the Sawm and Salat, they will do those for me. If I have missed any Hajj, they will do those for me. This is the Khalaf al-Salih. And when they go out, they conduct themselves in a manner, when people see them, they say, may God bless the soul of the parents that brought them up, in a manner which their lifestyle reflects the principle, moral and ethical principle of the parents. This is the critical issue. You can bring your children up the best doctors, the best pharmacists, the best lawyers, the best dentists. But if they are not inclined to remember you after your departure, you are not. This longevity that you are looking for is no longer there. If you don't bring them up, but at least Laylatul Jum'ah, they come to your grave and sit down and remember you and recite Fatiha. then you have a problem. So number one in list of longevity is Khalaf al-Salih. Bear it in mind as you try to organize program for our younger generation, that they are the one that should remember you after your death. And you bring them up in that manner, ethically and morally orientated, that they understand the sacrifice and all the efforts that parents made for their well-being and their upbringing. The least they can do is to come on the grave and say, thank you, Dad, thank you, Mom, and recite Fatiha. Number two on the list, a social institution that perpetually provides benefit to the society. You organize a clinic. You organize some other institution that the sick, the needy, the poor, feeding station, they come in, they benefit, and then they go out. Every time they come in, they say, may God bless the soul of the person that did that. The third is knowledge. You bring up students that they constantly remember the debt that they have to their professors and to their teachers. To this day, there is not a single professor of mine that I don't recite Surah Al-Fatiha for them. I always recite Surah Al-Fatiha at night, early in the morning, to the soul of 1, 2, 3, 4, because I'm indebted to them. So by having students around that they can remember you, your name remains, or the books that you publish, your name remains there and people remember. These are the three particular ways of getting longevity. But in the list of what we can do and cannot do for the deceased, first the wajibat that they have missed, and if they have done any backbiting or slander or anything of anybody, if they were not able to go and ask forgiveness, the son, I'm going to go to them and say, please forgive my dad, forgive my mother if they have done anything. And if they have taken anything from you financially or something, you return it. So there, we have huge amount of literature regarding what we can do for the soul of those who are deceased. Now, I want to wrap up tonight quickly this concept of death, and then go back. Tomorrow night we will be talking about the life of Imam Hassan alayhi salatu wasalam, because it's the night. Because it's the night of his birth. And then we go back to the theme of Quran as we get closer and closer to the Layal al-Qadr and the revelation of Quran, various aspects of it. Humans are created in stages. From the moment of conception to moment of birth, Quran talks about this stage by stage. From the beginning until the birth, they have to go through stages. And continue their lives to go through a series of movement until ultimately either they lead a life that would lead to two things. Either final destination is garden, or final destination is wrath and punishment, depending on what we do here. The stages that we go through. Even for those who intend to go through this spiritual uplifting tazkiyah and spiritual cleansing of the soul, ulama and urafa and the mystical figures, they say you have to go through stages. Quantum leap is not possible. From nafs al-ammara, that all the egos and everything else is in full control of oneself, I want to become a nafs al-mutma'inna, which is the highest level of being elite, in one jump. You can't do it. I'm sure I've seen our younger brothers playing basketball or anything else, or might be other sports. I remember my own days at the university, I liked squash and I liked badminton. So when you go to the gym the first time and the coach is standing there and say, sir, I want to learn how to play badminton. Do you know how to handle the racket? No. Okay. This is the racket, the first time. Start using it. Or if you want to become famous tennis player and you can't hold the racket, same thing. Or basketball, if you can't dribble, so you're not going to be a good basketball player. You can compensate for your height with the speed, as we have seen them in some of the national teams, but you need to be able to learn. And that is gained slowly, step by step. That's a fact of life. The same thing happened in the spiritual movement. We go through these various stages, and ultimately we get to the stage where either the lifestyle that we have conducted during our life leads us to what we call fire or Garden of Eden. Death is like birth, is one of a series of stages that the soul has to go through before the final destination. The final destination, as the verse in the beginning of the discussion, right? فَمَنْ زُحْزِحَ عَنِ النَّارِ وَأُدْخِلَ الْجَنَّةِ. It's over there. So biological life, this physical reality that we have here, will cease to exist. Go and read a few articles. Within a week, the worms and everything else have gone through the body, and only the bones would remain, the skeleton. And within a few years, even the skeletons would disappear, probably bits and pieces of turning to dust. Remember the verse in the Holy Quran that I talked about last night? Jahili man, Jahili women, Jahili people found it very difficult to accept that when our body turns to bones and dust and particles, are we going to be resurrected again? So this physical, biological reality that you pampered, you went through all the exercises, you got the muscles built up, all the vitamins and everything else is there, giving yourself the macho figure. If the goal is not the hereafter, all of this will be left behind. The biological life ceases to exist with death, but our souls continue to move forward to its final stage, but final destination through various stages. Quran reminds us that this life, again and again, in the verses of the Holy Quran, this life of ours is nothing but lahu and la'ib. It's diversion and amusement. وَمَا هَذِهِ الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا إِلَّا لَهْوٌ وَلَعِبٌ. Surah Ankabut. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Holy Quran and Ahlul Bayt through various ahadith and tradition that we have constantly reminds us, they're reminding us of one fact. Because the final abode, the permanent place is the hereafter, be mindful of the fact not to fall in shaitan's trap and become victim, thinking that this is permanent, this life is permanent. Whether you are poor, whether you are rich, at the end of the day, all of us would leave with 3 pieces of cloth, if we are lucky, that wraps around our body and dumped into the grave. So there are criteria for those pieces of cloth. They cannot be made out of gold to indicate the richness of or supremacy of one or the other. It has to be simple pieces of cloth. Our ahadith, our Ahlul Bayt reminds us of this fact, that remember, at the end of the day, you are leaving everything behind and you take nothing with you. The pharaohs and the rich people that existed before, they had to mummify their body, but at the end of the day, what remains from them is just bones. And all the gold and silver and the jewelry that they thought they could use it in the hereafter are spread around their body to no use. What is critical is a'mal. So, and the moment of death, a profound spiritual awakening take place, which is yaqza, that we should do it constantly here. There is a hadith from the Holy Prophet ﷺ, موتوا قبل أن تموتوا. Die before your ultimate death. Which means what? In the spiritual hierarchy, willingly remove the veil from your eyes by going through this process of tazkiyah and a spiritual enlightening, so that you understand what is your position vis-a-vis of this continuum between heaven and hell. Don't wait until Israel comes and then one says, رب ارجعوني لعلي أعمل صالحا. Oh Lord, give us a second chance. Let me go back. One of the major themes in the Holy Quran, in addition to the concept of death and departure, is the death of the living. You have the physical reality. You live. But you are, for all practical purposes, the person is dead. The soul is dead. The heart is dead. And if you remember the discussion we had on the Qalb al-Marid and Qalb al-Salim in the past, if you bring it into this conversation and look at it again, listen to it again, those who have a sick heart, a diseased heart, various levels, Quran refers to these individuals as dead individuals. They are either living in a vegetable state or animalistic life. Quran says, "Inhum kal an'am." They are even worse than beasts. They are human beings. The appearance outside physical reality, they walk on 2 feet and they talk. But the soul, which constitutes the essence of our existence, is either dead, deaf, dumb, or not completely blind of the reality. So when the soul loses sensitivity and becomes cold and callous, death of feeling comes in. And if you go to the Holy Quran, you see a reminder of people of Jahiliyyah, those during the life of the Holy Prophet, that their heart is dead. They cannot feel. We saw it during the period of 407, and even up to now, what's happening in Gaza and the tragedies of massacres and everything else, or in Syria or somewhere else. There are people, their heart is dead. They are not sensitive to this reality. يخادعون الله سورة البقرة والذين آمنوا وما يخدعون إلا أنفسهم وما يشعرون. They don't have the sense of feeling to understand what's going on. They think they are playing with Allah and they are tricking Allah. Quran also criticizes those hard-hearted, that the heart is solid. Again, a metaphorical comparison says that even rock, if you subject it to constant flow of water, ultimately water will make some kind of a hole through the rock and pass by. Why is it that your heart, being so hardened, that Allah's message and so on is constantly being repeated, but you're not listening? So, and all this, and remind us that all of these, no feeling, it needs spiritual growth through tazkiyah. This is something that we have to do during this month. The death when nafs al-ammara takes over, ego and everything else, is literally استحوذ عليهم الشيطان فأنساهم ذكر الله. Shaitan has come to completely capture their existence and they don't remember Allah in their life. Again, some of the discussions in the past. The concept of taqwa means bringing Allah from an abstract floating idea somewhere in the sky, bringing it into our life on a daily basis. You wake up and you think about it. You go to sleep and you think about it. During the day, you think about it. When you are confronted by temptation, you'll think about it. There is also the death when we lose the faculty of intellect. أَوَمَنْ كَانَ مَيِّتًا فَأَحْيَيْنَاهُ وَجَعَلْنَا لَهُ نُورًا. These are the dead, intellectually dead individuals within the society that we provided them with guidance, and ultimately brought them out of that world of ignorance. They were ignorant, dead, and we gave them life. So Quran categorizes some people as deaf, dumb, blind, with hardened heart, intellectually dead, and emotionally insensitive. All of these can be remedied, and all of them can be restored to the normal life if we really spend time understanding, first of all, my position vis-a-vis of my heart, and then taking some kind of a path to navigate through it and bring the life back. Month of Ramadan is one of those months. Whether you fasted during Rajab, whether you fasted during Sha'ban, at least from beginning of month of Ramadan, we have to pay attention to the fact that this is the month in which وَقَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا, the verse in the Holy Quran. Those who purify it, they are the successful. If we don't, then in a week from now, next Thursday or next Friday, or next Friday night, the night of the 23rd, when you are standing before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, oh Lord, give me longevity, give me this, give me that, and including a blessed spiritual life until next year. Allah says, okay, let's face it. What did you do for me to give you such a thing? If you write a petition, just a normal life. If you write a petition, you do something at least to support your petition that I am qualified for this or the other. You apply for a job at the university. You can't just turn up at the interview and say, okay, I've come here for a job. You have to go through the whole process and other things. Laylatul Qadr, the 23rd, is the night in which we only can succeed if during the month of Ramadan, from the beginning of the month until at least that night, we have done something to support our petition. Otherwise, this will be an extremely costly loss in our life that we don't know until next year we are going to be around or not. We all of them, at least the adults, we look at our life, we close. It's a matter of if. It's a matter of when. It's not a matter of if for us to say, as we say, adios. Because it's no joke. Life comes to an end. And we have to transition between one stage to another. You can continue doing your physical, biological thing again and again, but when are you going to focus on tazkiyah in your life? And ultimately, spiritually moving yourself, or myself, I'm talking about myself, from one of these dead situation and station, and slightly moving it towards a spiritual existence and life. May Allah help us in our purification journey during this life, inshallah, and it is a hard struggle. This is why they call it al-jihad al-akbar, the greater jihad. Inshallah, Rabbana la tu'akhidna in nasina wa akhtana. Oh Lord, don't punish us if we make mistake or if we go astray. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us during whatever half of the month that almost left. If we haven't achieved anything, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would help us to achieve it during the rest of the month. Thank you very much. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.